Greetings, everyone. I can tell you that the council members would love to have that ability to just keep me muted. So I'm sorry I wasn't able to speak there, but we're ready to get going. Thank you to everyone who is attending this evening. To respect everyone's time, we're going to get started. Welcome to what I hope is the first of many mayor's town halls. For those I don't know, I'm Sean Krausert. During last fall's election campaign, I did some Zoom town halls and received feedback that it would be a great thing to continue. So based on that, I'm planning to do 3 or 4 every year. Here's how it will work. I'll take the first 5 minutes to provide some updates, and for the rest of the time, I'm opening it up to you to ask whatever questions you might have. And the questions don't need to be related to the update I'm providing tonight. If you would like to speak, use the chat function and send a message to register to speak, and your name will be added to the list. When you hear your name called, the meeting host will unmute you and give you permission to start video when it's your turn to speak. Please be sure to have your microphones muted and videos off unless you have been called upon to speak. If we don't get to all of the questions, you can either save them until the next town hall or feel free to send me an email. I really look forward to hearing people's questions. There are just a couple of ground rules. Please try to keep your comments and questions to a maximum of 5 minutes per person so that we can get to as many people as possible during the 60 minutes. And while I'm sure I don't need to remind everyone, I would ask that everyone remain respectful this evening. So let's get started. The 2022 budget includes some important and exciting initiatives to benefit our community in both the short and long term. Here's a quick overview of what you can expect to see this year. Design work of the near net zero fire hall is complete, and construction of the new building on Palliser Trail starts later this year. An area structure plan for the Palliser area will inform other potential land use changes, development of affordable housing, and the approach to manage these environmentally important lands. As well, a downtown area redevelopment plan will guide municipal investments and opportunities for enhancements, including a potential seasonal or permanent pedestrianization of a portion of Main Street. And in the meantime, Main Street will be pedestrian only again this summer. To reduce congestion in the downtown area, we'll implement a paid parking program in the town center, with revenues helping to fund fare-free transit, including an improved frequency schedule. All of the implementation details can be found at canmore.ca/parking. But in a nutshell, there will be approximately 250 free parking spots provided within a short walking distance to the town center. For example, the Elevation Panhandle along Fairholme Drive and 7th Avenue. And as well, Canmore residents will be able to park for free up to 3 hours inside the paid zones in the town center and Quarry Lake. We'll conduct a study to look at the impact of a potential passenger rail service between Banff and Calgary and what impact that will have on our transportation systems with additional trains and passengers arriving by rail. Infrastructure enhancements are underway at Quarry Lake, including the installation of 2 new vault washrooms and more garbage and recycling facilities. In addition, we will be installing more residential food waste containers in neighborhoods throughout the town. We will be upgrading the current gravel pathway to match the hard surfaces between the Bow River Bridge and the existing asphalt pathway in Three Sisters. Grant funding for the tennis court expansion at Lions Park was recently confirmed, and the playgrounds will be relocated to the north side of Lions Park. We will rebuild the tennis courts to include 4 tournament regulation-sized courts. We created a regenerative tourism framework to facilitate a thriving tourism economy in a way that ensures the regeneration of the essence of Canmore as an authentic, active mountain town that has a meaningful relationship with the natural environment and Indigenous culture and history. We are working with Tourism Canmore Kananaskis to create a tourism roundtable to monitor progress and engage in community dialogue. Lastly, I'm very excited the council is currently working on our new strategic plan for the 2023 to 2026 to prioritize important issues in our community, It will incorporate what we heard from the public during the recent election, this year's Citizens Perspective Survey, as well as input from administration and informed by our many master plans. Stay tuned for more details on that coming later this year. Okay, now I'm opening it up to you to ask whatever questions you might have about what you just heard or anything else in general. If you'd like to speak, as I mentioned before, use the chat function and send a message to register to speak, and your name will be added to the list. When you hear your name called, the meeting host will unmute you and give you permission to start video when it's your turn to speak. Please sure to have your microphones muted and videos off unless you've been called upon to speak. We don't get to all the questions, as I mentioned before. You can either save them till the next town hall or feel free to send me an email anytime. So let's go to the first person.
So the first person asking a question is logged in as Peer, P-E-E-R.
All right. Well, welcome, Peer. Once you get unmuted and your video on, looking forward to your question. Is Peer still there?
The initials are Peer in, P-E-E-R in. And let's see, we've asked them to unmute. And they had a question about recycling.
Okay.
But perhaps we can come back to them, although that is currently the only person who has requested to ask a question.
Okay, well, I'm very proud of Canmore's recycling programs, and between our recycling efforts through the blue bins, also adding to that the food waste composting, it's greatly reduced the amount of loads that go to landfill. And if I could just say to Peer in, you will have, if you're being asked to unmute, you will have to click the unmute and turn on your video. Meanwhile, if anybody else has a question, please put your name, send it to request to speak.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, how's everyone? Sorry, I got disconnected. The quick question I have.
Yeah.
The current situation in the Bow Valley in terms of fog, wastewater, or grease trap contents, it's it's a bit unfortunate, and there's no regulation or enforcement of the current bylaws. So as well, the town of Banff allows restaurants to dispose of the wastewater in their garbage bins. The town's garbage trucks aren't watertight, which is leading to wastewater leaking around our community, both the Bow Valley and Banff, so between Banff and Canmore. I've actually personally reached out to Carla Bitts here in Banff regarding this issue, and I have yet to receive any sort of response, which is also concerning, because a lot of this wastewater ends up in landfills that don't actually get properly treated. So more communities are requiring a licensed hauler in order to negate the problem, as well as not expose the staff to the hazards that grease intercepts. So does the town of Banff and Canmore have a plan to regulate the industry and put an end to the improper disposal of wastewater? And given that we're going to have an increase in restaurant business, et cetera,
thanks for your question.
Thank you.
It seems a lot of your circumstances come from the town of Banff, and I actually can't speak at all to the town of Banff, given that's a different municipality. I know that the town of Canmore has been working with businesses to both encourage, in fact, I think there's a requirement with regards to certain traps, and the CAO is online. If she has any more information, she can fill in on that. But we've also been working to encourage the diversion of food waste, and working with the Canmore Rotary Club in order to cover the cost of the initial cost to get that set up, so that the businesses can see how it works and then pick up on it themselves. So that is currently underway. Sally, do you have any information with regards to the traps? I remember that in a number of years ago, we had brought in requirements to have certain traps, and that there was a campaign to get that onto various businesses.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Krausert. Hi, everybody. I'm Sally Cottle. I'm the new Chief Administrator for the town, Administrative Officer for the town of Canmore. Still getting used to saying it. We were doing work within restaurants for grease trapping, but I don't know and I'm not aware of any issue around the hauling of grease and wastewater. So unfortunately, I don't have a good answer for Pier, but I'm happy to work with you to look into it with our solid waste team and understand more if there's an issue in Canmore.
Yeah, thanks for that, Sally. And honestly, you're the first person that's ever brought that up with me. So thank you for doing so. Do we have another question?
Yes, we do. The next question is from Emmett McPartlin. Apologies if I'm mispronouncing. Emmett, you'll receive a note to unmute, and then you are welcome to ask your question.
Hi there. Hi, Mayor Krausert. Hi, Sally.
Hi,
Nice to
Emmett.
see you. I won't get too deep into like specific issues. I guess I just wanted to ask, like, first of all, say hi face to face. And thank you for the communication we've had already to date. I really appreciate that. I wanted to ask, we've talked about specific bylaws that are going to be looked at. And I wanted to ask about how like that process and like the expected timetable for bylaws being brought into effect. Like I know Sally mentioned it's in the work plan of the specific bylaw we've been discussing is in the work plan for this year. But like, what does that mean in terms of, actually being put into effect for a bylaw in general, to not dive into specifics today?
Sure. So when bylaws are in the work plan, first of all bylaws are reviewed after a regular period of time, and so there's always bylaws looking to be revised. But also then there's new bylaws that will come on depending on circumstances. You were referring to a bylaw that has to do with a nuisance, and the thing that one would be created by the protective services manager. The way that the bylaws are created is, first of all, they'll look at examples of what other communities are doing as far as best practices and learn from those, and then adapt them or create them in conjunction with our town solicitor and our municipal clerk's office in order to create something that is suitable for Canmore. Depending on the bylaw in question, it will also then be reviewed by other departments that may have some involvement with it, and then it gets put on a council agenda. We had a pretty big issue last year that took a lot of council's time, and it caused a backlog of a number of planning and development issues that are now starting to make their way through the system. We just had an ASP earlier this week, and in addition to that, we're bringing bylaws through. There's regular bylaws that we have to pass on an annual basis having to do with finances. But then, as I mentioned, there's a number of bylaws that are making its way through the system. So my understanding with that particular bylaw that you're interested in, it is in the work. It's not only on the plan, it's in the works. Keeping in mind that those who are working to create these have a number of things on their plates, and we need to make sure that they're done right, and then they need to get into the lineup. So I'm not exactly sure of the timing. Originally, I thought it might be this spring, but it might be somewhat beyond that. Does that answer your question, or did you have anything particular that you wanted to add to that to find out further?
Yeah, I guess it was more just like, is it months or is it years? With
Oh, I'm
the-
expecting that we'll see it this year.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for taking the time to answer that question. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks very much for attending tonight.
And while we do have 18 participants joining us tonight, there isn't anyone in the queue with a question. So if anyone would like to ask a question, just pop a note in the chat box and we would be happy to take your question. There is a question from a follow-up question from Emmett asking if this recording will be made available. And yes, we are recording this, and we'll be sending out a note tomorrow with a link to the recording for anyone who missed this evening's town hall.
Yeah, and we'll of course appreciate feedback for future town halls. Sometimes town halls are done for a particular purpose. They're talking about something, an issue that is, or project that is coming forward and wanting to have some community dialogue around that. What I've going to do, and we'll do those from time to time too as they're required, but what I'd like to do, if it's useful, is make myself available in a variety of ways to answer questions and discuss the issues that are important to you. So the idea here is that there will just be a short update on something topical at the time when we have a meeting, but the rest of the time is completely open to questions. So if you have anything on your mind, or would you like to know anything more about something that I provided an update on, because it was very quick, just pop your name into the request to speak.
I did get a question, Mayor Krausert, through someone who can't get their video and microphone working, but they ask you, what is an important issue that's really important to you that you're most looking forward to addressing in your term?
Well, without a doubt, it's the lack of affordability in town. It's a pretty steep mountain to climb, given the how expensive it is here. And but this council, I believe, is going to be quite committed to it. We need to increase housing in a variety of segments. I see this housing spectrum being there's homelessness, there's social housing, employee housing, CCH non-market housing, and then you get into market housing. We need more housing in all of those sectors. And in order to have a healthy accommodation sector and be able to get enough units in place that will provide accommodation for a significant segment of our population that is struggling with housing insecurity. But housing is not the only issue to deal with in affordability. Transit is an incredible important part because when you look at the living wage, the four big pillars that drive up the cost of living are housing, transportation, food, and for those who have children, childcare. The municipality has the biggest or greatest ability to impact housing, working with partners and trying to encourage various projects in the community, but also with transportation. It has some impact on food through policies, but other than that, not a lot. And childcare is in the purview of the province, and thankfully that's going to be reduced in cost because of an agreement that's been reached between the province and the federal government. So I talked about housing. With transit, we need to increase the reach and frequency so that it becomes a viable form of transportation for even more people, so that you're not having to spend too much extra time waiting at bus stops or killing time until the bus comes. And for some people, it's still not even an option. So I'd love it to be going down Bow Valley Trail, down Palliser, down Larch. A variety of places in town that could really benefit from having that connection. So affordability is definitely it. If we move the needle on affordability, we have done very well.
Thank you, Mayor Krausert. And for anyone who just joined the meeting, if you'd like to ask a question, please just use the chat box and click on request to speak. Type in your name and you'll be called upon to ask a question. There is just one other question that's popped up in the queue. Someone requested that I ask this on their behalf.
Okay.
Their question is about the intersection at Benchlands Trail and
The intersection. Yes, I know exactly where you're talking about.
And so the question is, do you feel that that intersection was in any way a mistake?
Well, I don't think that it was a mistake outright. I think that there was some change that we've had to adjust to. I'm definitely not used to having the lights on this side of the intersection. And then, you know, sort of when you get to go, you don't really need to look elsewhere. But once you get used to it and you experience it, you realize actually everybody's just doing the one thing. You're not having to look multiple places if you're making a turn and picking your spot. You just follow along. So in that case, it's greatly improved. The intersection was timed with revamping the infrastructure beneath the road, and so it would have to have been redone in any event. I think that there's been a lot of lessons learned. The phasing has been improved. There's been less backups, in my opinion, and I travel through it multiple times a day, every day. Less backups at most times. There are still occasional backups. The worst ones being when you're coming from the Spring Creek Circle, and especially if you're needing to, well, actually, if you turn or go straight through, you can sometimes get backed up there, but that's getting better. And then, of course, when you're coming from downtown and wanting to make a right turn at the A&W, that gets backed up quite a bit. But that's improved quite a bit, and I've seen the numbers, and it's actually only in the like 5% or less of the time that it goes over a criteria that they look at to see if there's a problem. Now, that said, there's going to be even further improvements with the phasing, as a new control box that we've been waiting for has finally arrived, and that's going to be installed this month. So that will even help on those 5% high points. And so there's been a lot of changes there. The other, of course, issue and is the height of the lights compared to where you need to stop in order to be able to see them. So those lights are going to be lowered. There's some accessories that have been ordered that allow you to drop the lights down. I was told they'd be dropped down a couple of feet, which will of course make visibility if you're at the front or near the front of the line that much better. Once that's all done, I mean, it's beautiful, and I think we can't forget that it is a huge success with regards to other modes of transportation. So whereas the problems have been experienced with the vehicular traffic, and those have been, I believe, worked out or are being worked out, it's much safer for pedestrians, much safer for bikes, and it also, you know, is I think quite attractive looking as far as intersections go. So was it a mistake? No. Did it have some problems? Yes. Have those problems or are those problems being rectified? Yes. And at the end of the day, I actually think it's going to be a success.
Thank you very much, Mayor Krausert. There aren't any questions currently in the queue. So if anyone would like to ask a question, one just came in. It was from Jen and saying, thank you for hosting this event. Unfortunately, I have to go in a few minutes. I hope you have another town hall and maybe an in-person town hall. That could be a question. Mayor Krausert, are you considering at some point an in-person town hall?
Yeah, I mean, I'm open to whatever will excuse me, will work for people. The Zoom allows you to be at home. You don't need to be getting up and heading to the council chambers or some theater or something. You know, looking for babysitters or whatever. So it allows you to do so from the comfort of your home. So I was thinking when starting with Zoom that's why we would do that, so that people wouldn't have to alter their day greatly in order to get their question answered. But if there's a demand for in-person town halls, I certainly would be open to that.
Thank you very much. And also a bonus of being on Zoom is it's very easy to record and post to YouTube afterwards.
Absolutely.
While we wait for any other questions to come in, is there anything else you'd like to mention?
Well, I would mention when we were on the topic of the intersection, it was funny. That's what I called it when I first moved to town over 25 years ago. Actually, I called it the lights because my office, my law office, was just a couple of blocks down from the A&W. And I always told people, you know, when they asked where my office was, I said just a couple of blocks from the lights, because that was the only set of lights in town. So that intersection has been a leader in our town for a number of years.
That's great. Thank you for that. Again, if anyone would like to submit it, would like to ask a question, just pop a note in the chat box, click on register to speak, and we'd be happy to unmute you and have you ask your question of Mayor Krausert.
And of course, if there's no questions, then that's fine too. We won't use up any more time than we have to of people if there's no questions, and that's fine. It will probably take a little getting used to the fact that this is out there for people to hear about it, and then encourage others to come if they have questions. Like I was saying, I'm trying to be as accessible and responsive as possible. So you can send me an email at sean.krausert@canmore.ca. You can go to the website canmore.ca, and you can also look up town council and send any messages that you'd like there, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Sometimes it's the same day, sometimes within a couple of days, and most of the time it's definitely within a week. Once again, depending on what's currently going on in town. I don't mind being stopped in the grocery store or on the street. So please feel free to reach out and ask any questions you have, or if you want to find out more information about anything. And if I can't answer it, then I'll either try to find the answer or refer you to a member of administration that is handling a particular matter.
And there's also a great section on our website at canmore.ca/connectwithcouncil. And there's a great list of all the different ways that individuals or groups can connect with council, either through a meeting, as a delegation, at a public hearing, or in writing. And all the information is there at canmore.ca/connectwithcouncil.
Great, thank you very much for your assistance with that, Robin. So do we have another question, or should we be calling it a night?
There are no more questions in the queue, but there are still 16 people in the town hall, and certainly don't want to exclude any of them. If you're having trouble with the chat, perhaps click on the raise hand button at the bottom, just in case any of the technology is a barrier. We definitely want to hear from everyone who wants to speak this evening.
I don't want to threaten anybody, but I'm going to have to open up the bad dad jokes and start digging into those. So you consider yourself warned. Bad jokes are on the way, as I give people a chance to respond if they have any.
Maybe perhaps one bad dad joke, just in case anyone's having trouble with the technology. And if we don't hear from anyone by the end of your joke,
Okay,
might be a sign.
okay, well, everybody knows I used to be a lawyer. Well, I tried to sue the airline for losing my luggage. I lost my case. Huh? I know that you're all laughing hysterically
We're laughing.
and just can't unmute, so you're welcome.
Well, thank you for that.
All right, so do we have another question or?
There are no more questions in the queue.
Okay, well, I wish everyone well. Keep an eye open on the website or through Facebook or the Rocky Mountain Outlook. And for the next town hall, I am going to give this a try for 3 or 4 times and see if it catches on and it's something that people appreciate. And we will do another one. So have a good evening. Thank you for coming out this evening or tuning in. And I hope that the rest of your week and your weekend is fantastic. Take care.